four of us. But then most of my colleagues, 440 of them, are based in Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and extending to Ethiopia. So I'm not the representative of the organization. They're all almost, 98% of our staff are from East Africa and are leading our operation from there. So here it's a very small place. So I'm going to tell you about Village Enterprise. So our mission is to end extreme poverty in rural Africa through entrepreneurship and innovation. We can go to the next slide. Back in 2015, I was very excited when I read a little bit about your giving circle and the fact that, yes, you started being inspired by Nicolas Christophe, because back in 2015, Nicolas Christophe wrote an article called The Power of OP3. And it was an article actually describing the result of a study that was done over 6 countries of our model, which is basically the graduation out of extreme poverty model. I can send you the link afterward. We were very excited when it got mentioned by Nicolas Christophe. That was huge for us. But anyway, and what Nicolas Christophe said is that hopelessness and stress creates the poverty trap. And that's really what we're trying to address at Village Enterprise. So this is Agnes. She has 4 kids. She's from a very remote rural village out of Uganda. And at the onset of the pandemic, she had very limited resources and opportunity to provide for her 4 children. They would miss from time to time because they could not afford the fees. She could not afford to feed them 3 days a week. And so this is actually, let me go to the next slide. Yes, and this is the fate for actually 1 in 3 African, 430 million African live in poverty today. 70. And this is 70% of the extreme poor worldwide. And 80% of those extreme poor live in rural areas. And this is where Village Enterprise focus their work. We work in very remote and remote areas of East Africa. Because of the pandemic, the World Bank is predicting that over 100 more million people are going to fall back into extreme poverty. And of course, we won't be able to attain the SDG goal #1 of ending extreme poverty by 2030. But we have big goals at Village Enterprise, and we hope to contribute to, go to the next slide. Thank you. I know there was one.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Oh geez.
And so,
Okay.
Yes, perfect. And so our solution at Village Enterprise and our program is composed of very rigorous targeting of the extreme poor in the communities where we work. And then we provide women like Agnes the business skills and financial literacy so that they can start a small business. And then we provide a seed capital grant. So compared to Promover that provides loan, because we work with people in extreme poverty, and for them taking a loan is too risky, we provide them with a grant so they don't have to reimburse of $180 for a group of 3. And then we coach them for 9 months to make sure that they're really on a path out of extreme poverty and they have a sustained business. And we also help them form business savings groups, because in those villages, they have no access to, formal financing. And so we help them form savings groups of 30 women, mostly women. It's 82% of our program participants are women. So we help them form saving groups of 30 women, 10 business groups, so that they can start right when they begin our program, save every week, little by little, so that at the end of the year, they can either borrow from the savings group to, expand their business, diversify their business, and they can also, use their savings in case of emergency, etc., and provide for their family. So to date, we've studied 70,000 small businesses, and we've trained 240,000 individuals. So over the past over 30 years of our organization, and we're hoping to achieve that same amount of reach in the next 3 years. So we are really on that curve to scale. And that's really exciting. And our solution, so we've been so you can go to the next slide, please. And we've been, yes, perfect. As an organization, we've been very committed to impact and evaluation of our program, making sure that, every iteration and adaptation that we do have, the expected impact or increase the impact, that we're hoping to achieve. And, and not only the impact, but also trying to do it in a very cost-effective way, right? Because when you think about the magnitude of the problem of ending extreme poverty, you need a solution that has, as big of an impact as possible, but can reach as well, right? As many people as possible. And so really, finding that right balance and cost effectiveness is very important. So we have a recent longitudinal, 5-year longitudinal study. We got the result it was last winter. So after the pandemic and severe lockdowns in Uganda. So for example, in Uganda, there was no means of transportation whatsoever for 3 months. So, people over there, they have, so Agnes, she had a bike, after being part of our program, but most of them, they don't have a bike, right? Or they don't have any means of transportation. And so anyway, finding ways to, provide for their families and have opportunities was extremely difficult. But what we found through the study that we did was that, so after 5 years and despite the pandemic, the increase in income of our program participant was 83%, and the increase in savings was 933%. And so we were very excited about that. And we did also another study, a randomized controlled trial. So I don't know how familiar you are with this type of study. And so we did a very large one across 14,000 households in Uganda and Kenya. And we got the result last March, and it showed that basically for every $1 that you invest in Village Enterprise, you generate $5 in lifetime increase in income for our program participants. So a benefit over cost of 540%, which is, within our sector, the poverty gradation model, one of the highest. So yeah, and what it means concretely for women like Agnes, right, is they can provide 2, again 3 meals a day to their kids. They have income generating activities so that they can improve their house, they can send their kids to school every day, even to high school, and they have hope for the future. When you go to a village and you see a woman entering a program and you see the, woman at the end of the program and the way they describe themselves and how proud they are about what they do and, and how far they've come, it's really inspiring. So thank you so much for having me. About the last slide, actually, that's okay. We can go to the questions, and I can talk about that through the questions.
Really great us.
What I would just wanted to say is we keep on really adapting and innovating on our program and kind of, how to better, promote and help climate resilience for our program participants. So how can we provide best practices in climate smart agricultural? How can we help them link with index weather insurances, because climate change is very hard on those communities. They're facing severe droughts or floods. That's one big strategic focus of our organization. And the other point that I wanted to mention as well is that 80% of our program participants are women, and kind of figuring out how can we continue to improve upon our program so that we can better foster gender equity, we can decrease interpersonal partner violence within those communities, and really, have those women be empowered to be model in their communities.
Question for you.
Yes.
So I love that you did a randomized control trial.
We did too, actually.
Yeah,
That's what
I did
was
too. I know, and that just stings my heart. But I'm curious because certainly out of that, and when you saw the results, which were so fantastic and affirming, it surely raised other questions. So I imagine there's plans to do yet another trial, and what kind of question does Village Enterprise really want to get at to help you continue to tailor and innovate and find?
No, that's a good. So we are actually right now in the process of launching another. So we are launching a big project within the refugee context, and we are launching a project by which we are partnering with Mercy Corps. This is a very large international development organization, and we bring women right from there to there, like starting a micro business. But how can we really help them grow from a micro business to a small or medium enterprise? And so right now we are working on this very innovative partnership with Mercy Corps, and they're specialized in market system development approach. And so how basically can we integrate our two models so that we can, increase our impact? And so we're having another randomized control trial in northern Uganda, in those, refugee camps in northern Uganda and in Ethiopia, to really kind of, prove, hopefully, that combined and integrated model can work, and can work in the refugee context, but in many other contexts. And so, yes, we're in the process of doing that. So that's one, for example, question that we are trying to address. But also, randomized control trial, yes, are great, but they're very expensive, and they're also for an organization like ours, very complex to implement. And they're also somewhat ethical questions, for these very large randomized control trial, basically half of the villages, right, were control villages, so could not receive our program. And so it's one, very complicated for our field staff on the ground, right, to manage, expectations in the community. And it's also quite complex as well, because then instead of going for our field staff, right, going from one village to the next and kind of saturating the whole village and then going to the next, when you have a randomized control trial, you're really limited in the way you operate. You cannot saturate the village, and then there's buffer into the village, so they need to, they need to go from, they need to travel way more, basically, to operate the program. So what we are trying now, and what we are very happy with too, is that through this randomized control trial, we basically showed statistical significance and strong correlation between our business health indicators and those ultimate outcomes that we're trying to achieve, which are increasing income and well-being of our program participants. And so now that we have proven that very strong correlation, we can use, our business health indicators, as kind of, proxy for, the ultimate outcome that we're trying to achieve.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I don't remember the exact number, but 240 something thousand people, businesses maybe.
Entrepreneurs trained
Okay.
to date, yeah.
To date, and that you were hoping to do that same number in the next 3 years.
3 years, yes.
What's changed in your model or program, or how would that be possible?
No, that's a great question. So one is, we got a very large grant to work in that refugee context in Ethiopia and in Uganda. So that's going to be a big, scale up for us. The second is also we're, through also large grants from the government, like USAID contract. We started very small on a project, and they've been extremely happy with what we do, and we're expanding it significantly in northern Kenya. And then I think, as an organization, it's also always important to set very ambitious goals, right? Because only if you set very ambitious goals, you can reach them. And so it is ambitious, but at the same time, it's, doable given, those those projects that we have already in the pipeline.
Thank you. Thank you.